Now, I used to work in palliative care myself. I looked after terminally ill people. But she would sit with these people who are dying before their time because of malignancy, and she would, get to know them. And the top regret was that I wasn't myself, that I didn't have the courage to be myself. I spent too much time trying to please others rather than, so that's what I found as well, is that people didn't know how to say no to other people's demands, were suppressing themselves for the sake of being accepted by others. So therefore, this question, in important areas of your life, either in personal existence or in your work activities, where do you have trouble saying no? If I ask you guys, does anything come up? Do you have trouble saying no?
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's a real issue for me.
Okay, so would it be, I'm not asking for details, but sure. Work or personal life, or both?
Both.
Okay, all right. So then the next question follows, which is what is the impact on you of your difficulty saying no?
It's often sort of leading myself to physical and mental exhaustion.
Exactly. Now, are you both parents?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the word that the kids start saying automatically at age 1.5? No.
No. Yeah.
Time to put your shoes on. No.
Yeah, you're right.
Now, why is that? Because nature is smart. And nature knows that we have to develop a barrier behind which we can develop our own will and our own preferences. So that no, that the child says automatically at that age, is their little fence behind which they can develop their own sense of self and their own will. If we don't crush it, a lot of people think now they have a monster on their hands, they have to crush it. So now we have people that don't know how to say no. So the impact is exhaustion, fatigue.
Yep.
It could be frequent colds, could even be serious illness. So it's an important little thing that you're not saying there. So that's the second question is, what is the impact? So I'm saying to people, identify where you're not saying no, write down the impact. This week, where did I not say no? What was the impact? I was resentful, I was tired, I had trouble sleeping, I got a cold, whatever it was. The third question is, what is the belief behind your inability to say no? So, in your case, Damien, what is the belief there? If I say no, what does that mean?
That people will reject me, people won't like me for saying no.
Exactly. So that if I say no, I'll be rejected. That's one story that people say. Now, let's turn it around. If you called me up to go for coffee, and I was up all night with a sick patient or somebody, and I said, no, I'm sorry, Damien, but I'm not going to go to coffee with you. Would you reject me?
The opposite, yeah.
Exactly. But you're afraid that you'd be rejected, which tells me something about your childhood, is that you got a certain message that you're only acceptable when you're compliant. And then you internalize that, and that becomes part of your personality. It's not who you are. It's just how you're programmed. So the belief is, if I say no, I'll be rejected. Okay, now the next question is, where did I learn that? And then we can go into your life. And and the fifth question is, who would you be without that belief? If you didn't have the belief that if I say no, I'd be rejected, who would you be? What's the answer?
Myself.
You'd be yourself. You'd be free.
Yeah.
And then there's the sixth question, which is, certainly was true for me for a long time. Are there areas in your life where you're not saying yes, where you want to say yes, but you're not saying it? Maybe some passion, some desire for self-expression, some desire to be out in nature or go hiking or, I don't know, play sports or dance or write or draw or play music. Or are there areas in your life where you're not saying yes, but there's a yes that wants to be said? And that yes that you're not saying is as impactful negatively as the no that you're not saying. first of all, by doing this exercise.
Yeah.
Like if you actually get the impact,
Yeah.
if you really think about it, you realize how important it is.
Mm.
Secondly, if you realize that you'd be free, that's worth something. So basically, it's just by noticing, not by judging yourself, but by noticing where you have trouble saying no, what the impact is, and that it's just a story that you're telling yourself. Now, it's true. There might be some people in your life that if you said no to them, they'd reject you. That might be true because you've trained them. You've trained them that you're the guy who doesn't say no. That's what they signed up for. And all of a sudden you start saying no. So, oh, this is not what I don't want. But then you have a decision to make. Who you rather please, them or yourself? And I can also tell you, the people that really cared about you and really loved you, they'd welcome it. They'd say, it's about time. So it's not that you lose anything in the end. You'd find out who your friends were.
Yeah.
But the people that reject you when you say no, in order to honor yourself, they are not your friends in the first place. Were they?
True, yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads to my second question of, how do we ask these questions? Is it better we ask ourselves, or do we have somebody that can help us and guide us through this inquiry?
You can do it both ways, but in the book, Myth and Normal, we set it up as a self-conducted exercise. Sit down with these questions once a week. Write them out. Don't just run through them in your head. Take a piece of paper, not even a computer, but handwritten. Where this week did I not say no? What was the impact of me not saying no? It takes 10 minutes once a week. What was the impact? What was the belief? If you do this regularly, people have told me that that exercise alone has changed their lives if they do it regularly. It's not that difficult.
When did you start asking yourself these questions? What happened for you to ask yourself these questions?
What happened for me, that life wasn't working. In my 40s, I was alienated and depressed, and I was successful, but I wasn't a happy camper, and there were problems in my relationship. I didn't like the way things were going with my kids, so I was challenged personally. And, I had to wake up and start dealing with it. It's an ongoing process. And this society reveres and rewards and valorizes external success. But all three of us know how many highly successful people in that conventional sense are totally miserable inside. I mean, totally miserable. You can see it. There's two kinds of self-esteem, you might say. There's what we can call contingent self-esteem, which depends on how well you do and what other people think of you. Then there's genuine self-esteem, which says, I'm not worthwhile because I can do this, that, or the other. I'm worthwhile whether or not I can do this, that, or the other. Now, the people that you're talking about are very much caught in that contingent self-esteem. That how they feel about themselves depends on how they perform and how they perceive to perform by other people. But underneath that, there's a hole. And it can never be filled from the outside. But that's what they keep trying to do. So the more successful they are, the more success they need. I know that feeling, oh great, my book is a bestseller this week. But what about next week when it isn't? Then who am I? And so this society values, valorizes, and touts that contingent self-esteem. And we do it in school to kids. We do it in kindergarten to kids. And we don't understand that intrinsic, non-contingent self-esteem that has nothing to do with looks, achievement, or external approbation. Well, by demanding that, by getting the kids the message that they're only acceptable to you if they behave a certain way.
Or get success at school.
That they have to have success, and if there's success, you're so happy. and otherwise you're not. By not seeing them, by not accepting their vulnerability, but by demanding that they be tough or resilient, by constantly evaluating them in schools. Schools are constantly evaluating kids. Now, I can show you the studies. There's such a thing called evaluation stress. You can do experiments with adults where they're being evaluated and their stress hormone levels, even when it doesn't matter, even if they know it's only an experiment, and you measure their stress hormone levels, they're elevated for days because they're being evaluated. It's called No, what do we do to kids? When we're constantly marking them, grading them, and demanding that they behave this way and that way, and they perform this and they perform that. Well, we're creating evaluation stress.
What should we be doing? How should we be monitoring them at school?
Again, if you go back to human evolution, how did kids learn in the first place? Did they sit in classrooms the whole day?
Explored.
They explored. They were outdoors with adults, under the benign supervision of adults. They played, free play. Now, free play is one of the essential needs of childhood. Our brains are wired for play. We have play circuits in our brains. Not only we do. Have you ever seen kittens or puppies or elephant cubs or lion cubs? They play. Why do they play? Because play is essential for healthy brain development. And play is far more important for healthy brain development and learning than academic instruction. So we let our kids play, not with machines, but free play out in nature. And then they'd learn by watching us do things. Those kids will then develop a natural curiosity, which will make them want to learn about history or science or art, whatever they're interested in. So we get it backwards. We put the academic instruction and evaluation ahead of the child's spontaneous development.
We both have daughters who are just starting at high school.
Yeah.
So they're now starting to see the world of social media, the world of celebrity.
Yeah.
What's that doing to their self-esteem?
It depends on how well they connected are to the parents. If the primary connection is with the parents, then they're not going to be dependent on what their peers think of them. I mean, it might matter to them, but they're not going to be dependent on it. But there's a book that I helped to write, it's called Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Need to Matter More Than Peers. It's been published here in the UK as well, and in 40 other languages. It's not my work. It's the work of a psychologist friend of mine called Gordon Neufeld. I did the writing with him because he's not a writer. But it's about the fact that in this society, kids get too hooked into each other way too early, and now they get their cues on how to be and how to walk and how to talk and what's important from each other, including they get the sense of value from peer evaluation and peer acceptance, which means now immature creatures now have enormous influence on each other's development, which is not how nature intended.